Welcome to a lesson with Dr. Powell. Let's take a look at all the trig functions and their inverses, their restricted domains that we use for their inverses. So for sine, we discussed in another video that we have to restrict it. So restricted domain turns into restricted range when we take inverses. So the output of this is going to be from negative pi halves to pi halves. Enables us to actually be able to have an inverse. The output of cosine inverse, if you think about it, using our rule of thumb, we want to use the first quadrant. We can't go back, so we go forward. It's actually 0 to pi. Okay, so what about, let's think about the others and how we can get those. So tangent is sine over cosine, and we're going to have a rule that numerator wins the deal. The numerator is sine, so tangent's going to be in this family right here. So maybe we'll put the tangent right here, inverse with sine. So likewise, you can think cotangent inverse would be down here with cosine, where the numerator wins out. Okay, what about okay, so that's great. And then we have, so that's secant. Secant actually, the numerator is very lowly. It's just a 1. So the denominator cosine, it feeds into this one. Then you can just imagine cosecant would go here. But using that basic idea, you know where to output all your angles whenever you have one of these guys. For instance, let's just take one. Let's take the inverse secant. And let's do 7 pi. No, we can't do an angle because remember what goes inside. It's not an angle, right? It's a ratio. Okay, so let's suppose we did secant inverse of -2. What would we output? Well, okay, now think about what secant inverse is. I mean, this right here, what we're putting the output of something that we would get from secant, and secant outputs like a 1 over x coordinate, right? So this is like a 1 over x coordinate, which means that x itself is actually equal to -1/2, which means the cosine is equal to -1/2. So cosine equal to -1/2, that would be x value -1/2 would be over here, right? Which would be the bigger angle coming up this way, pi thirds less than pi. So this would be 2 pi thirds. But now, which one do we use? Do we use 2 pi thirds or something else? Well, we check. It's from 0 to pi, so we actually do use 2 pi thirds. So the secant inverse of -2 is actually equal to 2 pi thirds for sure. And that's the only thing that it can be equal to. Thanks for watching.